Kelly Shaefer from Atheist and Till the Dirt, and you're listening to the FANTASM Podcast.
Phantasm. Maximum terror.
Oh! That's your target audience, baby!
Phantasm.
You know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.
Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal!
Phantasm.
But here, it's amazing. I've been here since I was a kid.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But yeah, there's a lot of things going on. We have this 30th anniversary tour with Cynic.
Oh, awesome.
And so because of COVID, we didn't get to celebrate our 30th for Piece of Time or for Unquestionable.
Sure.
So we're doing a trilogy anniversary set. So
Amazing.
we're doing all the songs from the first three records. Not all of them, but most. A lot of it's a really long set, longest set we've ever done.
Sure.
And so we're really excited about that. And this is also the 30th anniversary of Focus for Cynic. So
Nice.
me and Paul have been friends since we were, in our early 20s. So yeah, it's something we've always wanted to do, and it seemed like a good time to do it. And Cynic hasn't played in probably 8 years.
I'm about to say, yeah, they've been, yeah.
So it's going to be really cool, man. Two different sides of the technical metal sort of coin, all in one night. It should be really special. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah, I have a record coming out myself for a new band that I put together called Till the Dirt. That's on Nuclear Blast.
Fuck
That'll be
yeah.
coming out later this summer. Probably the heaviest thing I've ever done. So we're really excited about it.
Is it more just straight up death metal?
It's different, man. It's hard to explain. It's kind of a hybrid between my love of stoner rock and extreme metal. So it's
Okay.
if you can imagine if Alice in Chains had a blast beat band, like a really fucking crazy. It's super. It came out of the COVID era again. It came out of the frustration of being sort of locked down, and I set up a little studio in my house and wrote all these songs, and I got Scott Burns involved. Scott Burns came back out of retirement, so he produced the album, and
God damn.
super excited about it. Steve DiGiorgio played his bass on it. Jeff Loomis does a solo.
Amazing.
We got a lot of really great players helping. I wrote all the music, but I had a lot of guys come in and play on the album with me, and I also play guitar on it for the first time.
Incredible.
Since Elements. So yeah, lots of good things going on, man. Lots of music on the horizon.
I'm trying to. So you were talking about Focus from Cynic. I remember seeing them with Cannibal on the Bleeding. They were touring with them. I think that I saw, and then the last time I saw them was probably 10 years ago. They were touring with Devin Townsend.
Yeah.
And then
That was probably a good show.
oh, it was great. Yeah, it was really cool. Trying to think the last time I saw you guys. I was at least 18 or 19. Because my aunt and uncle used to live in Tampa, and I would go there and go see Deicide or Morbid Angel or you guys or Massacre or, the Gambit. I went to anything I could.
Where are you at now?
I'm in Pensacola.
Oh, Pensacola.
Yeah. A lot cheaper for me to live here than it was in Miami. I grew up in the Miami area, and my mom got real sick, which sucks, and I've been trying to look after her. But it's, Miami's, I love Miami, but I can't afford to live there. I'd have to rob a bank or something, to live in Miami. I love it. I grew up there, but in Boca Raton, but I just can't afford to live there. So it's a lot cheaper to live here. I love it here, though. It's pretty nice. So
Yeah. I haven't been to Pensacola much, but I used to go to Panama City.
oh yeah, it's great. This is a little less touristy, a little more mellow, just kind of
Cool.
the Pensacola Beach. Yeah, it's all right. Well, yeah. So let's. I've got to ask you this, man. I'm such a huge fan. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
So with the new band, is it fun to go a different direction after playing, Tech Death? You guys are like one of, to me, the front runners, purveyors of the whole damn genre. So is it fun to kind of put a different hat on for a little while? And
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. Like I said, it came out of pure, it came in a really organic state, like I was literally starting to kind of, I don't know, just write, because I had set up this little, the home recording possibilities of today just blow my mind as a guy that's been around since the old days of recording.
Yeah.
Where you had to go in the studio in order to get good listenable sounds. These days you can really, for a guy like me, I write a lot, and I write almost every day, and so a lot of the things that I write, I forget.
Sure.
So this was a way that I started logging my ideas. Every time I sit down with a guitar, I write something. Most of the time, it has to really rise to the top for me to remember it. But there's a lot of good things that I forgotten over the years. So anyway, this process started, and so I started logging Atheist riffs, and so I had about 3 hours of Atheist riffs, like back to back, and that I could refer to when it comes time to sit down with the guys. So and then I wrote these 2 songs, and they were just and I did vocals on them, and it was kind of a combination of my a lot of people in the underground metal aren't familiar with my singing voice, and I never would use it in the Atheist context because I would be just that's just not the time or place for it. So I found a place for it in this band, and so along with probably the most brutal screaming I've ever done in my career, so you combine that with this sort of high quality sort of Seattle stoner hybrid. It's like really, it's different. I mean, everybody that I've sort of hold on, you hear that?
Yeah.
Of course, the garbage truck has to come right when I'm outside.
Oh, you're good, dude.
It just, I wrote, like I said, I wrote 20 songs, and the first 2 I wrote, I just kind of sent around to some friends.
Yeah.
Just to see because I was just like, man, it sounds really good, but it's not Atheist, and it's not anything else. So, and that's kind of how it started. I sent it to a couple writer friends and a couple of musician friends, and people that I knew would tell me the truth. And, it started from that, and then I just got excited about it, just started writing my ass off, and ended up with a bunch of songs. So the album itself is top to bottom, man. As proud of it as anything I've ever done, and it was just but I didn't mean to, it's not, I didn't sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna start a new band and write all these different kinds of songs. You'll hear Atheist in it because I wrote a lot of Atheist guitar riffs throughout the years, so people that have listened to it have said, yeah, it's like but it's real modern. I mean, it's very today. It's not dated in any way, so it's just really excited about it. Can't wait to fucking get it out. I've been sitting on it for 2 years.
That's a long time, yeah.
Well, and with COVID, everything got really backed up, record labels and everything. But the most exciting thing is that Monty Connor is a guy who was sort of, as I refer to him, as the Clive Davis of death metal.
Okay.
He signed all the Sepultura, Obituary. Signed all these amazing bands. So he is the one that signed Till the Dirt. And
really?
Having Scott Burns as producer, it kind of is a full circle, 30 years circle to be working together with all these guys. It's the first time with Monty. I mean, we've always been friends. Monty's always been a believer in Atheist. And we came real close to being on that label back in the day. So, so it's nice to have this sort of the family together, the old school family with this new modern kind of band. And I can't wait to see how it plays out.
Is Monty at Nuclear Blast?
Yeah, he's vice president.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's instrumental in doing the Overkill and Testament and stuff like that. He has his own imprint at that label as well. His own label within Nuclear Blast. Yeah, so and he's a hard guy to please, man. He's a very tough critic. Knows exactly what where things are, his ears to the street. He's always had a great knack for that, for being able to reinvent himself as a guy that signs bands. All the way from the old school death metal to Slipknot and Nickelback and shit like that. All kinds of different bands.
Yeah, that's impressive.
He stayed, he's I've known him since we were 19 years old. So he's a little older than us, but I mean not much. But, yeah, so couldn't be a cooler team of people and the best label for metal on earth.
Oh yeah,
Nuclear Blast. So it's got a good shot. So we'll see what happens.
So the Scott Burns thing, I've got to ask you about. How did you make that? Because man, I think he is the best producer. Period. Like
he's a man, you know. I mean, he's just can't say enough about Scott Burns, man. I mean, he's just the reason all those old records, you know, we were able to finish those records because of his work ethic and because of him going to bat for us. You know, none of us had lots of money to get those records done. We were given small budgets, and a lot of times, you know, he would go the extra mile and come in early and leave late to make sure those albums got finished. And, you know, he did that for everybody.
Right.
And, plus, he just has an uncanny ear for hearing kind of where bands should be. He, you know, back in the day, he was more of an engineer. He would, like, when we would sit down and do solos, he would produce on that level. Because producing and engineering are two totally different things.
Right.
So while he was called a producer, he was really more of a wizard technical, you know, a mix engineer. You know, he was mixing, but he was pulling, you know, to sit down and do solos with Scott Burns and have him give you a nod of approval was a fulfilling thing back then. You know, it was like, yeah, you know, you rip out a solo and be like, what do you think of that? And he was like, yeah, it's fucking cool, bro. And so on that level, it was great to work with him. Now, until the Dirt, he worked with me at a different level, a different capacity. I had some demos done, like they were very listenable demos.
Right.
And he was, you know, just really helpful and helped me with arrangements, helped me with some song choices for the album. But he didn't have to do any of the technical stuff this time. So, you know, technology's come a long way since then, you know, and so the way records and everything is done on a computer now. So it's, you know, there's a learning curve there for a guy like Scott who does things the old school way. So I really was just grateful to have him on, you know, helping me on this different level, you know, telling me, because, you know, the world is full of, yeah, it sounds cool. Yeah, it sounds cool. You know, this complacency. And Scott will, you know, give me the real deal, you know, and that's hard to come by. So it was, plus I just trust his ear. And if something is hokey or too long or too drawn out, then he's there to tell me. And it was a fun process because it was the first time that we had reconnected in 20 years. So, you know, and he doesn't like much. So between him and Monty, you know, and their support, it made me feel vindicated.
Oh, dude.
In writing all these songs.
I mean, cool. that's an insta sell for me as a fan anyway, just because you're on it. But
at least to listen anyway. You know, I mean, I think anybody should be curious to listen, and I feel like the songs back it up. You know, and so we'll see. I guess we'll, you know, it's a tough world, this music business.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I was going to ask you, I guess a death metal question. I personally feel like the bands that did it back then, yourself included with Atheist, there's bands that get it, and then there's bands that I used to listen to, who I'm not going to name, that I feel like they're trying to put out any kind of thing they can to stay relevant, where there's some bands, like Atheist, where I feel like you would be too specific about just putting any fucking thing out just to sell it. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's
to me, the creative craft of making death metal is its own thing. Like, if you were part of it, as opposed to someone that was trying to just duplicate the sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the you know, the bands that, you know, I've enjoyed watching Cannibal Corpse evolve.
Yeah.
Over the years, you know what I mean?
Well, they've got Rutan now, and I think that's incredible.
Yeah, and Alex Webster as a bass player has like grown fucking exponentially.
Sure.
Like, he's just been, you know, a tremendous talent. He always was, but he's just really honed his craft, and they put all that sort of collective, you know, riffing and experience, and they're ferocious, man. I mean, live, they're just a well-oiled machine, and so I really enjoy seeing that. Obituary is a band that's stuck to their guns for a really long time, you know, and never changed. Always been the way. You know, you can tell from the first few guitar notes an Obituary record. It's hard to have that kind of unique identity.
Sure.
I think one of the great things about the older bands is that there is a differential between, you know, you can listen to Liquid Metal and hear 8 different new bands. And it's really hard to tell the difference between them. You know, I mean, everybody's got, you know, and not to take anything away, because there's some unbelievably heavy, amazing new music out there that I just really, really love. But it is a little less unique than it felt like back then. Maybe maybe I'm just an old guy and I'm wrong, but I just think there's a huge difference between Morbid Angel and Obituary and Cannibal Corpse and Atheist and Cynic and Death. Like those, you can put those bands on and tell who those bands are. Like we don't sound alike, but we all come from the same world, so to speak, and the same era. So these days, with how easy it is to make music, there's just so many bands, but records aren't made the way they used to be made. So a lot of what you're hearing is almost inhuman. It's almost AI in a way, because it's just so. It's the sound of drums today compared to the sound of drums in the early '90s. It's just night and day.
Wow.
Now, but it's not as real. You know what I mean? Those aren't real performances. And listen, I've embraced the technology, so I'm not ragging on it. I'm just saying it's different, and it sounds different. It's less human than it used to be. Every record that Atheist ever made, every drum track you hear is one solid performance.
Right.
There's no cutting or pasting or any of that shit.
Sure.
That's a top. When we would go in and play scratch guitar to the drums and played the song maybe 5 times, depending on how many times it took to get a really lively take, and then we would track to that drum, that drum track, and we never did it to a click track, so it was always different.
Wow.
Each take. So and then so then when you track guitars and bass to that, it's imperfect. It's not to a click. It's
yes.
Speeding up and slowing down. It's breathing. Just like a real living organism, and that's missing from today's music. And I think ears and your brain recognizes that after so many years of the last 10 years of music being so perfect, and everything is so polished and perfect. And that's another thing I really love about the Till the Dirt record as well, is while I did embrace the technology, it's far from perfect. It's there's moments where some of the vocal takes I did are just once through, and and I left them the way they were, that to capture that the night that I wrote it, the feeling that I was feeling in that night. I would write. My wife was a bartender, and so she would leave for work at 7:00, and so I would have the house to myself and my little boy, and so
cool.
I would start writing a song, and I would have the music done by midnight, and then have a couple more drinks, and that was another thing that was a weird experiment that I've explained on a couple of other podcasts. But I always all the Atheist music I wrote smoking weed.
Really?
This Till, absolutely, yeah. That was a huge part of the creative process for all of us. Roger Patterson, myself,
nice.
All of us, really. And so that opens up different doors in your brain. And with Till the Dirt, I was drinking like Jaeger bombs. So and that creates a different. I've never ever written music while even having a glass of wine or anything. So it created a hostility and an anger in my writing that I was kind of like, whoa. And so the next day when I would listen to it, it's kind of like, do you drink at all?
I do.
So when you go out and you get drunk one night, and if you get to the point where you're like, oh, I had one too many shots and I said too much, or you think about it the next morning, like, did I insult that guy, or did I insult?
Sure.
You just think about the things that you did. Well, musically, it's the same way. Like I would write these things that I would never normally write. Alcohol gives you a braveness. You see people start fights in bars all the time, get their ass kicked because they're drunk. Well, musically, it was like that for me with Till the Dirt. I was like, well, I was just doing things I would never normally do, and listen to it the next day and be like, holy shit, that's awesome. And it's where it came out of just pure experimentation. And some people might frown at that, like, oh, don't encourage people to drink or smoke pot, but that's my process. That's and I'm sad to tell everybody that most of the great music of the world is created in inebriated states. I promise you, Led Zeppelin was not straight when they wrote those records.
No.
Pink Floyd were not straight when they wrote those records. So for all the people that don't do drugs or don't party in any way, you can vicariously live through that music. And I think that's why people gravitate to music like that, because it is kind of a way of having an altered mind without having an altered mind. You can be a 9-to-5 banker and come home and listen to Animals from Pink Floyd and be like, oh man, I feel like I'm tripping.
Right.
This must be what it's like to trip on acid. Really not, but for them it is.
Sure. When you back in the day, like when y'all would go into record after you've wrote a record or whatever. Because I was always fascinated with this, because that's why I thought Atheist was so unique, because there was really nothing like you guys. Because you figure even like Death doing the Human album, which this is probably going to sound weird to you, as much as I loved Atheist, I didn't like when Death went down that road. Like Chuck.
Yeah, they went down that road after.
Dude, he threw me because and I love I saw Death several times. I was lucky to get to see him a bunch, but he threw me with Human, then brought me back with the next album. I was like, oh, thank God. Cause I like more pissed off Chuck as opposed to, Chuck doing Cynic. Cause that's what, I swear to you, this is no joke and not a shot at him, cause I was a huge fan, but and I've said this, I've been doing this podcast for almost 10 years. It's something I've said. He just threw me with that record. If you guys had put that record out, I would have never, I'd been like, oh, it's another, but it's like, it just didn't feel like Death to me, like I was.
Well, no, you've been around for a while, so you know that there was a sort of pecking order of things that were happening.
Yeah.
And, we didn't always get along with the guys. We didn't get along with Chuck in the beginning. He was,
sure.
We had a real tough time with our relationship, and he was very territorial. And when we started mixing jazz elements with metal, he was quick to talk a lot of shit about us.
Oh God!
And to people that were about to invest in us and help us make Piece of Time.
Sure.
So before we made that record, he called the person up and said, that we don't even listen to metal, and that we back then he was just very gatekeeping, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't do that. You can't mix jazz with metal. And, inevitably when he started playing with Sean and Paul, he realized that progressive nature was the future. You can't just keep making the same old gory lyrics and the same,
Sure.
same simple riffs, and the simplicity of it needed to evolve. And, to his credit, he, you may not like it, but I think it was an evolution for him. I think he woke up and realized, oh, okay, yes, it is good to have musicianship. And having Paul and Sean in the band, they were incredible musicians. Oh yeah,
unbelievable. And that wasn't. I hope you didn't take. That wasn't a shot at them. I just that is.
No, I get it. That's your opinion, and I think that's
and to
be honest about it.
To stay in the same level with this. And again, this is not something I've never said before, and I'm friends with Paul. He's not a fan that I say this, but I prefer the Barnes era Cannibal stuff. It's what I grew up with. I love George. I think George is a great guy and very talented. But if you're going to put a gun to my head, you're on a desert island, give me the first 4 Cannibal records and I'm good.
Wow, man, you are old school as hell. Yeah,
I'm just being honest. It's the same thing with.
I love talking metal. That's the beauty of it all, man. Everybody, it hits everybody differently, and the most important thing is that it hits. And Cannibal Corpse is, we toured with them back then as well. We had the same sort of. It was just difficult for bands like Cynic and Atheist back then. We had no one to tour with, so they stuck us out with Candlemass, and then they stuck us with Cannibal Corpse. So it's like two totally, we didn't fit into either one of those tours,
right?
In terms of music, but we had nowhere else to go, and so that's why this new Cynic Atheist tour that we're about to do is so cool, because we finally get to go, and everybody in the room is going to be prepared for sort of technical excellence.
Oh, it's amazing,
and it's a good feeling for us to go out and know that we're not fighting the knuckle dragging, gore guy, the guy that's like, fuck this technical, rip my guts out, fuck,
right.
Those guys, we don't have to fight with those guys to get them to like us or listen to or not yell shit between songs. So it's really fun, I
don't. Just as a kid, I think it's probably simple nostalgia. Like, but when I reach for, you know, like Cynic or you guys, I want to listen to that music. You know what I mean? And I was into it then. When I saw them, I didn't know who they were when I saw them open for Cannibal on the Bleeding, and I loved them. I thought Focus was great, and I've been a fan ever since. Same thing with you guys. Like when I got my buddy of mine gave me one of your cassettes in high school. I literally tore it up. You know, the time out, and like I destroyed it. And I think it was that way with Death for me, because I loved the first 3 albums. So when he put Human out, it was so, you know, and then. But then when I got Individual Thought Patterns, I was like, oh, he's back. We're good. There's still some of that in there, but and a lot of people hate that record. I love that record, you know, and the only Death records I can't listen to are the last one, and then I can't listen to Control Denied. I couldn't get into it. Just couldn't do it.
Well, that would have, if Chuck had lived, that's where he would be right now.
I'm sure.
He'd be making power metal.
I mean, that's cool.
That's where his heart was. I think once he got, you know, popular with Death,
sure.
I think he really wanted to escape that, and I think that was part of the reason also why he allowed himself to gravitate into our waters of playing more technical kind of extreme metal. So, you know, again, he was just always trying to, but I think inevitably he wanted to be in a band with a really kind of high singer like Rob Halford or something like that. You know, that's was his real main love, but he couldn't get away from the Death stigma, and I know what that's like. I'm going to be experiencing that with my new band. You know, everyone's going to go, yeah, but Atheist, and it's like, yeah, okay, but this is different. You know, this doesn't sound like Atheist at all. And, you know, people should let it stay. I kind of even said it to the record company. I was like, do we have to mention Atheist at all? You know, can we just put this out and, like, just, you know, pretend it's not me?
I hope it's cool we've talked about it. I would shoot myself if I didn't talk about it with you, so.
Well, no. I'm just saying in general that you have to, I'm just pointing out how hard it is to be an established artist and then try to do something different.
Oh, sure.
Everybody wants you to wear, you know, we like you in that shirt better. You know, it's like, yeah, but I'm tired of wearing this shirt.
Yeah, right, sure.
You know, I'm not tired of I'd like to wear a different shirt from time to time.
Sure.
You know, musicians are never allowed to step outside the bounds of other people's comfortability of it. And traditionally, anyway. I mean, there are, you know, people that have made, you know, obviously Dave Grohl probably still hears about Nirvana. You know, and he's, you know, Foo Fighters are as big a band as you could be. So I guess it's just the nature of people go, oh, you know, because they, you know, you spend you know, Merciful Fate to me. I love, you know, King Diamond, it's cool and everything, but Merciful Fate that's what I grew up listening to. That's those notes resonate with my soul in a way that, you know, nothing else that he's ever done has. So, you know, it's tough. I get it why people get so attached to, you know, the original recordings and the original way things were. But I invite people to just create new experiences with the new music. So, you know, when I think about old metal, I think about listening, getting high with my friends in the car, riding around, cranking it up really loud with the windows down to freak people out at the stoplight. You know what I mean? Like things like that. Those are the visual experiences I think of when I hear Hit the Lights, you know, from Metallica or Fight Fire with Fire. You know, I used to love just going to the beach and cranking it up and watching everybody around us go, what the fuck is that? You know, because it was so beyond, you know, the Motley Crue and the Poison and the shit that was, you know, out around it. Everybody would be like, what the fuck is that? You know, and I'd be like, yeah, what's up? You know, and then so King Diamond and Merciful Fate, that shit was so evil sounding back then that it would freak people out, and I love that. And so those experiences coupled with that music, that's the soundtrack to my youth. So it's hard to create a sequel, so to speak. You know? And but I think, you know, I've established new memories and new experiences with bands like Deftones. You know, I love Deftones. So when I hear Deftones, it reminds me of the 90s. And so, you know, as you get older, you have these periods in your life. You know, the old shit reminds me of the late 80s, early 90s. The Deftones and stuff like that remind me of the late 90s, early 2000s. And so everything has its era. But it's good to you know, it's good to not be stuck. And I mean, when I watch people and then how attached to Kiss they are, I guess beyond the makeup and the shtick of it all, the music's so old, man. It's like it's 50 years old now. It's like, so I always think about in the 80s we weren't playing music from the 30s. You know what I mean? So I just wish people would kind of just move along. Yes, we love the old Kiss stuff, and that's that. But I mean, just to keep. No, I don't want to listen to any new music. I like Kiss. Okay, well, there's a lot of really cool new bands that kind of were influenced by Kiss. Maybe the music doesn't sound the same, but the same spirit is there. I don't know. That's the beauty of music. It's just this. You can think whatever you want, and nobody can take your opinion away from you, and that's kind of cool. I like that.
I mean, for me, I'm actually everything you described. I'm stuck in my thing, and we've done this podcast built on that. I don't like. I'm pretty particular, especially death metal stuff. Like I'm not going to go waste my money to see most stuff because Suffocation's my favorite death metal band, and I love them just because they've never changed.
Pound for pound, as good as it gets.
I love them. Terrence is a dear friend. I love him to death. Derek Boyer, great dude. I love them. They're great. I miss Frank, but Frank had to do his own thing. It is what it is. But I love them, and they give me what I want.
Ricky is no joke, man. Wait till you hear the new album.
I can't wait to hear the new record.
He's a monster.
He's great. But we were talking about Burns, Effigy. That's his masterpiece to me. Like I can listen to that every day. It's just it's so.
Suffocation is really just one of those bands that just doesn't. I think when their new album comes out, I think people are just gonna be reminded of just how, like I said, pound for pound, great they are and at what they do, and just ripping your fucking head off. Like there's no fluff to it at all. It's man metal.
They're just. But I love them.
I know Ricky's going to go through the Frank comparisons, and then but he can stand on his own two legs. I mean,
I've seen him live with him a long time ago.
Well, I lived on a bus with him.
Okay.
I hear him warming up. You know what I mean? So, I'm just saying, I heard him warm up on a bus, sitting there, and without a microphone, without cupping a microphone, without any of that. That dude's a monster, and I can't say enough great things about him. I mean, so I look forward to him having his day to shine on a Suffo record, and I think it's a new era for them because he lends in many ways a more modern brutality. There's no one like Frank, that's for sure. I mean, he was a great frontman too. Really hard to replace his win.
See, to me, just to say that Glenn Benton, Chris Barnes, fucking and Frank. I mean, that's my whole childhood. I love those guys. I always will. A lot of people don't like those guys. I love them. I'll always love them. That's what I grew up with.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, I mean that's
the foundation, man.
I loved all that shit, and that's what I was into. Those were my three favorites, and I love that Cannibal's still doing stuff and everything else. Eric is the reason. I wish Eric and Paul and all those guys all the best, but I love Hate Eternal. The only thing I hate about him being in Cannibals, Hate Eternal's been put on the side burner, but because that's some nasty shit. I fucking love them. That band's so good, and I never have to worry about when a Hate Eternal record comes out about it being some piece of shit. It's just nasty. Eric kicking my fucking throat in. I love it. So God bless those guys for still making this stuff, and it's that's what I want. It's like buying an AC/DC record. I don't want an AC/DC record that sounds like fucking I don't know what. I just want AC/DC.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that it puts you in the headspace that you want to be put in. Again, rolling back to the soundtrack. I mean, life. If you watch a movie without a soundtrack, it's it's probably not a very interesting movie. Your life should be that way. If you're going to the store, for me, going to the store, I have a particular kind of music I want to listen to on the way to the store.
Nice.
Going to the beach, I know what I want to put in on my way to the beach. It makes my life experience better, and I've often said that I think that there's an untapped potential from Hollywood producers and directors. They're not recognizing this music and how effective it would be in some of the scenes in their movies.
Right.
murder scenes. If you're trying to create a real mysterious vibe, I mean, there's so much great music in metal that they're not ever using. You know what I mean? There's just all kinds of, and maybe because there's a stigma of death metal. I don't want to listen to that. It's satanic metal or what. I mean, there's that naive sort of generalization about it. I'm surprised that somebody like Quentin Tarantino hasn't been like, what the fuck? What is Napalm Death? Like, holy shit, that's violent sounding. I'll put that up with this violent scene in this movie, and that'll really lift, it'll cause the visuals to be even more violent. And but I haven't seen many people do that, especially not on a high profile. You see some of the most insane scenes in movies that have kind of this fluffy music around it, and it's like, what the hell, imagine the scene in Goodfellas where he stomps out, for calling the shine box guy. I forget what the guy, Billy Bats, while they're stomping his face and like they're playing, I forget what that song is that's playing. It's just like really melancholy, and it worked, and it was a cool scene in the movie. But imagine it with some violent music behind that face stomping.
That would be great.
I just think that would be cool,
So, To the Dirt, are y'all going to do a bunch of shows, or are you going to?
Listen, man, the sky's the limit on what can happen. We'll see. Certainly have the band in place. Got great players and ready to rock. So we're just going to see what people think of the record. It's going to probably be August, but you'll probably start hearing about it in July.
Incredible.
And it'll just be it'll be something that will either set itself up or it won't. You know what I mean? But I'm proud of the record. If I have every intention of going out and touring, and I think in a live setting, it's going to be pretty ferocious, and certainly for me, the most, the fastest and the nastiest thing I've ever done musically, metal-wise.
I love it. I can't wait to check it out.
It's really cool. They're playing this music like better than it's ever been played, man. I mean, I can't say enough about the new Atheist guys. They're young and fiery, and I put together some monster musicians that are just really doing justice to this material, and we're covering so many songs we've never played live before. Awesome. And so I'm excited for everybody to see it. So everybody get your tickets for the tour, because definitely some shows are going to sell out for sure, and then everybody's going to be hitting me up and I'll be like, I told you, I told you it was going to sell out. So.
Awesome, dude. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Take care, man.
Talk to you later, Vincent.
I'll hit
Cheers,
you up.
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.